Wonderful, thank you. It's a real pleasure for me to introduce Michael. I mean, aside from the fact that this seminar is about some of the things I'm most interested in, sustainability and pro-sociality and design and innovation, Michael is already very much a part of the pro-social community, having done facilitator training with us. And I guess I really appreciate that you've really looked into what we're doing, and now we're very, very keen to hear more about what you do. Thank you very much for making this time. I was a bit surprised to hear it's midnight for you. I'm very impressed that you're managing to stay awake. So I'll make this short and let you get right into it. So just a little bit of background. Michael's a design anthropologist who serves as a university professor, author, and consultant. You've co-authored 2 books on the circular economy and contributed to numerous scientific journal articles. Your work specialises in design for social innovation and humanitarian design. Your approach, I think, is very interesting because it integrates anthropology, ethics, and sustainability to shape a forward-looking design education focused on resilience. And as a result of that, you've taught in numerous schools and universities around the place. In fact, I was very impressed looking at your CV. I was thinking, what an interesting life. Moved around a lot, particularly in Europe, but also working with private organisations like IDEO and Fjord. I did take a quick look at your TED talk, Why Designers Should Urgently Listen to Anthropologists, and I highly recommend it. Aside from anything else, it's very funny in addition to being very informative. So it's a real pleasure to welcome you, Michael. Michael's requested that we hold our questions until the end of the talk. We'll have about 45 minutes or so, or whatever the time the talk takes, and then we'll have an open question time. But if you'd like to record your questions in the chat, I'll keep a track of that and perhaps guide Michael to them at the end of the talk. Okay, over to you.
Fantastic. Let's see, I need to share the screen now, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll do that. Can everyone see that?
Yes,
Match?
looks good.
Okay. Well, I'll get right into it. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this webinar. I am hugely honored to do this. This goes out especially to David Sloan Wilson and Paul and any people I haven't personally met. Very, very important in my, let's say, academic biography. I basically try to bring the ideas of pro-sociality and sustainability to the world of design. And very quickly about myself, I'm Austrian originally, but I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area at 12, and I actually grew up in the famous Palo Alto, which is ironic because I'm not a tech person at all. I'm an anthropologist. I studied cultural and physical anthropology. It took me all the way up to a dissertation, and I just wrote this book, which is kind of about my journey into the world of design. So I'll just launch right into it, and hopefully we will have a nice discussion. So I'm going to introduce this book backwards. If you read it chronologically, the first part is pure anthropology. It's the things that I think every designer must know about. So I speak about altruism versus egoism, the tragedy of the commons, collective action problems, evolution, where we are from as a species, etc. That would be the first part. Second part, I kind of put on the hat of an ethnographer that stumbles into the tribe of designers. Very steep learning curve. I didn't understand designers. And I try to introduce some anthropology into design. I speak about magic. I speak about animism, and topics like this. And then in the final part, the third part, I design a new curriculum for design schools. And that's what I would like to present you with. I was very shocked when I came into the world of design about 10 years ago, in 2013. I was hired as a full-time professor in an industrial design school as the anthropologist. And I was shocked that you can go all the way up to a master degree or even a PhD in product design, service design, UX design, automobile design, you name it, without taking a single course in ethics, maybe a little bit of sustainability, and next to nothing in anthropology. And so it's not really that surprising that we have a very unsustainable world, because we're not teaching these students the right information. So I start with circular systems. Obviously, we need to introduce some evolutionary logic here. Life in an ethical and sustainable way has become a weak evolutionary strategy. These are ideas that most of you are familiar with. In street language, this would mean it has become really, really easy to live in an unsustainable and unethical way, and to be zero waste and vegan and have a low carbon footprint. You have to go out of your way. You have to, it's very cumbersome. It's kind of a pain. So it's yes, it's a weak evolutionary strategy to live in an examined and wholesome way, and it needs to be protected. Of course, I teach about the circular economy. I will go as far as saying that what I know about the human species, this is the only chance we have. To not start with too much pathos, but I have to. Every other natural system on this planet lives in a circular way, except us humans. We are the only ones that have produced, or shall I say, designed garbage. So my definition of garbage is to build very complex composites in a way that you cannot reverse engineer, also known as recycle. And that makes garbage different to waste, right? So I embrace fully the cradle-to-cradle approach and the circular economy as laid out by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, etc. And we have to teach this way of thinking to our future designers. By the way, the name of the book was not chosen by me. It comes from the editorial from Routledge. And I like it because it's quite clever. It's a double meaning. It can mean the people studying design and becoming practicing designers in the future, and those that literally make the future. So, this sounds kind of infantile in a way, but I always say to myself, if I cannot teach this kind of stuff to a 4-year-old, then I'm a bad teacher. So you cannot throw anything away, right? We live on a hermetically sealed rock, the third rock from the sun, to quote Jimi Hendrix quickly. You cannot throw anything away. So when we put something into the garbage can, it's still there. It's just out of sight. And so it's as stupid as a little child saying, "You can't see me." And it's ironic that we pride ourselves in the more developed nations in being clean, but that actually just means we are really, really good at not showing all the garbage, because everything is here, from the first hand axes made by Homo habilis to things produced in 2024. It's still here. Some of it is being used, a tiny little sliver has been recycled, and the rest is in the air because of the incinerator, and our drinking water because of landfills. But it's still here. That sort of understanding needs to be introduced on day one of a design path, I would say. We've become very used to a very strange way of living that I will call the linear economy, which is taking, making, wasting. We take stuff out of the earth, resources, we make stuff into very, very tough to disassemble composites, like cell phones or cars or clothing or whatever. Then we actually encourage users to use it as short as possible. And then we ask the poor status quo to please put it into a bin of one of 4 colors. You know, I mean, it's completely crazy. But we've gotten used to this, sort of like a fish that doesn't see the water around it. The book is a pretty strong attack on marketing. I have found in my research that this is sacrosanct. No one attacks the marketeers. I do. Let me be super clear at this point. I distinguish between marketing in the sense of getting a word out, and I am marketing my book here, and pro-social needs to market itself to get the word out. Absolutely. Beautiful. I am not a fan of the other form of marketing, which is the carrot to constantly make our us end users feel inadequate. If we think about this, it is really based on inadequacy. Like you are so 2023, or you don't have the right body image, or you don't have the right outfit, or whatever, until you consume something new. It's based on mental disease in a way, on feeling bad about ourselves. So yes, I like to provoke a little bit. This book is has an attitude. I do think we need to have opinions and attitudes. Hashtag church. What I mean by this is, if we look at some of, oh, I got a little digital thumbs up there. I appreciate it. It's not just a provocation. If we look at the architecture of an Apple store, it is very church-like, with the vanishing point, with fetishized objects, with iconography. And how would you explain somebody camping out 6 days and nights in front of a flagship store for a new product to drop, if not a religious pilgrimage, such as the Hajj? I'm quite serious here. And design gurus such as Steve Jobs do have a priestly, semi-religious function. And just last month we had this event where Tim Cook comes on stage and says, basically, he says, folks, I've been lying. We have been lying. The iPhone 15 is actually kind of crap. You need to get the 16. So it's a gigantic cultural institution, globalized institution of obsolescence that gets news coverage on the largest news channels, and I question that. I think we need to look in the mirror and be aware. Planned obsolescence. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is very real. Every one of you, everyone on this planet has a drawer full of cable salad or cable spaghetti, because companies are telling us that each new device needs a different type of electricity, which is just a lie. It's just not right. Then there is also the kind of obsolescence where we make hardware obsolete through software. So when you cannot update something anymore, all of us have perfectly capable iPads and phones and whatever. I call this the limbo of things. I use semi-religious language there because when we are done with those products, we drop them into hell, quite literally, the incinerator. And when we refurbish them and when we give them another use for things, that is heaven, right? So obviously this is quite metaphysical, but I do think we need to develop a much better, more beautiful relationship with the things around us. If we're honest with ourselves, the times we communicate with our things, it tends to be harsh. Like we hit our car when it doesn't start up, we yell at our computer when it's a microsecond late or whatever. And the most sneaky of it is the psychological obsolescence, which is this feeling of inadequacy until you purchase something new. I'm a strong component of what is called open design or open source design. I do have to say that recently I am wrestling with this when OpenAI introduced the ChatGPT bot last year. I was thrown into a little bit of confusion. There's nothing open about OpenAI. They don't show you their mother code. What's open about it is that we actually build the robot. That's what large language models are, by definition. So we are free workers. Every time we fiddle around with ChatGPT or facial recognition or whatever else, we are actually building the machine. That's the open part, and it's pretty sneaky. I find it ironic, you know, when you have to identify yourself as a human on Watcha, whatever it's called. How cynical. Asking me if I'm a robot. No, you are the bot. You know, you are the bot asking me to identify bicycles or traffic lights and stuff. Feeding, once again, machine learning. This is a beautiful example here from NGO in Berlin. They're called Kokola, and they have received license to allow open source furniture building. It's a company that works exclusively with refugees, and they actually build into their furniture parts of the ships that took them across the Mediterranean. It's a strong storytelling that's going on here in this slide. I'm going fast. I'm sorry, but I have a lot of different information here, and I don't want to I don't want to leave anything out. So I am teaching this word to my students now. It's called usership instead of ownership. There is an absolute difference. We take better care of our private property. You can ask yourself right now, where are you more likely to pollute, to throw things away, maybe even pee or something? Is it your own backyard or is it the public park? And it's the public park, if you're honest with yourself, because someone else will clean that up for us. So this is an example of the tragedy of the commons, a collective action problem. And so designers need to understand that we need to work in groups and for groups and not individuals. So designers need to work very hard to make sharing of cars, of scooters, of whatever, of books in a library, so attractive and so beautiful that we will take care of those things, because it is ridiculous that everybody has everything. That if I want to put up a picture on the wall in my living room, I ask you now, what do I need? Do I need my own personal screwdriver, or do I need a hole in the wall? Right? So we need to move. We need to move to selling utility and access and away from materials. Because we are on a finite system called Earth. It's very straightforward, but we need to tell this stuff to undergraduate designers that are going to build our future. We share a lot of different things. Scooters, cars, whatever, bicycles, books. But would we rent for a few hours, maybe 6 or 8 hours, a really, really old mattress that hundreds of people have slept on and done all kinds of things on? Most people would say, oh, no. And then I wait a second and then I say, it's called hotel. Of course we do. It's called hotel or Airbnb. And here's the point. I kind of tickled your paleo brain there, and I made you think of germs. I made you think of pathogens. I made you skeptical, maybe a bit xenophobic, just by teasing out the old mattress. But there's an interface between object, in this case mattress, and user, in this case hotel guest. It is called bedsheet. Completely literal. Don't think of interface as just a tech term. And if you extend that analogy, then we can say there's a beautiful mini bar and a fantastic reception downstairs, which is where David Sloan Wilson will apparently go to. And so it's because of design that we are able to overcome some fears and some issues of sharing that makes that possible. And so then, of course, we do something counterintuitive like sharing or renting a mattress. So obviously everything goes a lot deeper. I'm jumping from tip of iceberg to tip of iceberg. Everything is much, much deeper, but I'm trying to cover ground here. The second part, I did steal from you, Keith. Creative anthropology is a fantastic term. I call it different in my book, but I think I get it, and so I would like to hear you later in the Q&A if I do get it. Creative anthropology, to me, design is literally applied anthropology. And here's my kind of mission statement. I work like a relay, like in a relay race. Us anthropologists, we're quite good at pointing out problems. We're quite good at saying, okay, here's an issue, and it's because of this and that, and here are these groups that don't like each other and whatever. But then we leave the podium and go home. Designers start there. And so my mission, my goal is to work like a relay runner. I pass the baton and the designers start fixing some of the issues of our world. Design research is extremely important. We need to understand when things are being used, and it needs to be contextual. This is something that I learned from you, David. So big for me, so important for me. I'm not a determinist. I'm not a genetic determinist. Behavior only starts to make sense when you look at context. Behavior in a vacuum loses all sense. Behave towards what? With what? Away from what? Right? And who makes the context? Designers. Right? So maybe at this point you're starting to understand I'm not talking here about makers of fancy glasses or sneakers. I am talking about literally the people building the built environment. Houses, architects, engineers, product designers, app designers, service designers, UX, whatever. They are literally, to use a kind of provocative term, colonializing the future. They are, let's do it the other way around. The designers of the past have decided how the future mic will hold this glass and how much liquid is appropriate for me and how to sit in this chair and how to use this QWERTY keyboard. So the consequence of that thought is that everyone who designs today is dictating how life will be run in the future. The evolutionary mismatch idea is very big in my classes. I like this metaphor of being literally in the wrong movie, not literally, metaphorically in the wrong movie. The way I try to teach it to my bachelor and master students is to say, imagine you audition for a role in a movie and you get it, right? You get the part and you're very excited, and you go home and you practice some of the subtleties and the movement and your accent or whatever. And then on the day of shooting, on the first day of shooting, the worst nightmare unfolds, and that is you are in the wrong movie. You thought you're doing a 70s whatever gangster movie, and now you're in some 19th century drama or something. When we are born, it's quite similar. So you're not born into this world. If anything, we're born out of this world. Alan Watts taught me that one. We're born out of we don't say a tree grows into the world, do we? Right? So we are born out of this world and into this culture. And our brain is selected, and our body obviously also, for a very, very different environment. And so the small child cannot cope with right angles because they don't exist very often in nature, not to mention artificial light, artificial climate, AC, gadgets, things. Those need to be learned. And once again, those are made by designers. They do not fall from the sky like the Coca-Cola bottle and the gods must be crazy. So I could say it nasty. I could say all design is manipulation. But that has a very strong vibration, a very negative vibration. So I'm using a term called behavioral architecture. Designers are behavioral architects, but it's the same thing. All design is manipulation. If you don't manipulate as a designer, you are a failure. Your thing is not being used. Right? So the designer of this shirt manipulates me in my movement, constrains me in my movement. The product designer that made this computer allows this webinar to function, etc., etc. So everything is nudging, but we need to be careful to know to what end we're nudging. Right? So if we go to a supermarket and sugar and fat, also known as candy bar, is at the very, very end, at the checkout, at the level of toddlers, then we've got a moral issue here. Because obviously the kid is going to respond paleolithically and want that candy bar. That is nudging. But the end, the beneficiary of that is Nestle or Kraft. Now, if we can manipulate in a different way towards pro-sociality and sustainability, that's a different, then it becomes a different game. It's still manipulation. I'm aware of this. But like David and Paul and all of you know, we need to manage our cultural evolution. That's what I'm talking about here, right? It's a managed cultural evolution, but I'm going into the world of design with this. So I came up with some terms. Instead of algorithm, I call them paleorhythms. Banksy has given me so much beautiful images. This is a great one here. There are certain things that are working in us. Daniel Kahneman has called it System 1 and System 2, and the behavioral scientists know a whole bunch of things about that. But very often it is used towards persuasion, persuasive technology that has a very dark side, in my opinion. So another term, another topic I would like to to make you think tonight is the tech that we're using and the applications that we're using and social media that we're using. It's the most archaic thing ever. It's just a new algorithmically amplified medium. Because if you think about it, what do we chat about all day? I mean, I'm talking, I spend my time talking to the Gen Zs, the anxious generation, as Jonathan Haidt calls it. These kids are on social media 6 hours a day on average, which means some are 10 and some are 3 or whatever. And I slam it in their face and I say, 6 hours. Okay, well, that's a quarter of your life. You know, and I believe no one has ever come back from the dead. And so that gets them thinking. and I asked them, so is it not, don't you communicate about who to trust, who to never turn your back onto, who has diseases and who is healthy, who is with whom in a sexual in a mating way, and who is in charge of resources? Is that not does that not sum up our social media? If you then put an algorithm boosting this, then of course we're gonna get extremely tribal. So we've been in this biggest experiment on Earth for 10 years now. I am talking about giving 3 billion users, so N equals 3 billion humans, the ability to say how fantastic, beautiful, great they are. Let's see what happens. Obviously, this being based on envy and conformity bias, obviously we're going to splinter into groups, and it's the opposite of pro-sociality. So there's a lot of room there to discuss. But I am a father of 2 daughters, 17 and 15 years old. I'm very proud to say my kids did not get a cell phone until 16. Nowadays, kids get open iPhones at 10 or 11, pre-adolescence. You give an open iPhone to a pre-adolescent girl, that is crazy. I would rather have them play with knives. I mean, I'm kidding, but wow. And these and parents that are intellectual and smart and everything do this. I know why, because it shuts up the kids. It's a great babysitter. Have you noticed how quiet restaurants have become? So another term of mine, Paleolithic jiu-jitsu. So in the martial arts, if there is a in karate, if there's a force in karate, you would try to counter that force with even more force. Jiu-jitsu pulls. Jiu-jitsu tries to, and Aikido tries to pull. And so I look at it this way. We have these biases, cognitive biases and heuristics. We need to use those for pro-sociality and sustainability. Now, this is not easy, but I'm not a huge fan of Elon Musk. I think, frankly, he's kind of losing his mind openly in front of the whole world at this point. But he has made not just the most attractive electric car, he has made the most attractive car. So when you drive a Tesla S-Class or whatever, you are flaunting like the peacock, handicap principle, signaling theory from biology. You're signaling, virtue signaling. You got lots of resources, but you also care about the planet. Now, whether or not this is true, and if we can recycle batteries and all this is another topic, but we are signaling sustainability. So if designers and marketeers can pull that trick off, then we can make some mileage, some progress, right? So maybe we can discuss some of these terms later in the Q&A. This is a strong photograph, and I do apologize. It's rough. It's very rough, but it's such an incredible image. Designers do not think about demographics. Designers still build sexy, shiny objects for sexy, shiny young people. Okay? And I'm telling them, listen, people, if you look at the demographic transition in the world, your future market, your future users are going to be aging weird people. I'm using the acronym of the weird people, but we could just say European culture. It's getting older and older, and a massive influx of the disenfranchised migrants. Start designing for them. Not only are we doing good this way, but also you're gonna make some money. I'm not anti-capitalist, right? This is another very strange thing in the world of design. Those of you not familiar, in the world of design, people put themselves very much on the left. I see kids with Che Guevara t-shirts and very leftish signaling, but they work in turbo capitalism. So there's a strange sort of cognitive what's the term I'm looking for? Conflicting ideas. Feistinger, what's his name?
Dissonance.
Consonants. Dissonance.
Dissonance.
Dissonance, not consonant. Thank you. Okay, so that moves me into the third part of this talk, and we're coming towards an end. Applied ethics. So let's think about this for a second. I apologize. I'm not gonna say the F-bomb, but you can read it here. Actually, yes, I will say it. Why the fuck are we not teaching ethics to the makers of the future? So another little thumbs up, okay. Listen, why are we teaching ethics only to philosophy majors when they're notorious for not doing shit, for not being practical? I have nothing. I love philosophy. It's super important, but they're not practical in that sense. We should be teaching ethics, especially to architects, designers, and engineers, because once again, they're making our future. It's not taught. Now, I know why. I'm not that naive. It's hard to monetize ethical design. It's hard to monetize. And my consultancy, so most of my money I make in teaching in universities, my consultancy is not doing that great. I'm not kidding anyone, because my product is not very good for business. I'm in Spain, they call it the agua fiestas. I'm the party pooper a little bit. We need to design for need, not want. This is really important. We need to stop giving marketeers so much headway. And I toned this presentation down a little bit because I don't want to get too dark. But the other, I changed this slide before. I had a quote from Metallica, Master of Puppets, and these, whatever. I think design is run basically by marketeers, and designers are just objectifying desire. We make all these shiny objects that Homo sapiens wants, like Schmigol in the Lord of the Rings. We need to get away from that. We need to go back to Victor Papanek. We need to design for the real world. Needs, problems, not desires. Moral distance. So when we look into the distance, we see things that are in the distance smaller, correct? Morality is kind of similar. This is what, as far as I understand, this is what David Hume talked about. We tend to care less about things that are very far removed from us. Peter Singer called it the circles of sympathy. And when we get out of our ego and out of our species and mammals and towards the insects, we care less and less and less. Design could, and here I'm running into David Hume's guillotine, right? The is could problem, but it could overcome temporal and geographical distance. So I look at design as almost like a very effective way to enter into all of these niches, all of these private parts of our lives, and we could be nudged towards pro-sociality and sustainability. Why not? We have been nudged into the opposite in the last few decades. Ethical things. This is a strange thing to think, right? Ethical things? What are you talking about, right? Things don't have... Well, no, they do. We need to start thinking of things as mediators. So if I have a gun and I kill a sentient being, I am responsible for pulling the trigger, but the gun is also responsible if I speak of it as an actor. Now it's stupid to take the gun to court, but without the gun I can't kill, and without the human the gun can't kill either, right? So the classic trolley problem that you're all familiar with in philosophy. I'm standing on a track. I see a train running down the track. There's someone stuck on the track. I could pull the lever and send the train in the other direction, but then I see with horror that there's another person there. Who do I choose? Philosophical, classic, very unnerving sort of issue. Well, it has just become extremely real. If I have an autonomous car and it is designed and programmed to protect the user, and the car sees on the one side the grandmother and on the other side a baby, and it's trying to avoid the tree, who does it run over? And when it made that decision, who is to blame? Is it the user of the car? Is it Elon Musk? Is it the company that has sold you the car? Or is it the writer of code? Wow. And we are slamming into this forward without a consideration. So the candy bar in your candy machine has more norms, or the sandwich you bought today has so much more norms attached to it than AI, right? Yes, I'm addressing the alignment problem here, and it's massive, and we're just sort of going for it. It's actually kind of brave of humans, or stupid. Quality by design. So there are some sectors that have very rigorous testing and iterations. Pharmaceutical industry, automobile industry, of course, because before you release a medication or a vaccine to the general public, you need to make sure there are no side effects and no one dies or passes out or hallucinates or whatever. In design, it's basically the Wild West. You can design whatever the hell you want out of whatever the hell you want. And at the point of sale, all of the responsibility is given to the end user, who are not informed. Yes, I'm speaking about regulation. Yes, I think we need a board of people. We need to, another shout out to David, the Ivory Archipelago idea. We need to come out of our islands. We need to work together. We need to have a board of people, an addiction expert, an ecologist, an anthropologist, a designer, an engineer, and then and some more. And then we say, yes, this thing can be released onto the public or not. I don't think that's actually so radical of a thought. Design leverages system one and must be based on use and not consumption. This is the Kahneman idea. We need to make sure that we work with the Paleolithic side of us and not just the frontal cortex, to steer humans towards good. Of course, I'm a massive fan of Elinor Ostrom. Obviously, that's why we meet here. This is one of our common denominators. I am trying to teach my design students that there's a third way. We don't have to go laissez-faire, free market, and we don't have to go to communism. There's a third way. We can design for and as tribes. We can manage our resources together because 99.99999% of our human evolution was in small groups on a gigantic camping trip, basically. I'm almost done. So, mental health. I think the most important book of this last year was Jonathan Haidt's Anxious Generation. Wow, what a brave man. Jonathan Haidt, or Haidt, I don't never know how to pronounce it. He dropped that book, and he's one of the only ones to point the finger at the fact that we're not okay, especially our younger generation. We're not okay. Starting in about 2012, when we have app-based smartphones, we see hockey sticks of a mental health crisis that are insane. It's not funny. This is not a funny thing here. We see self-cutting, we see ADHD, we see bipolar, we see suicide attempts and successful suicides going up through the roof. And it's very ironic, especially in the creative sector. Mental health is a serious issue. A lot of people burn out extremely fast in this issue. And my theory here is this cognitive dissonance. We know in the creative sector, we know in design that we're part of the issue here, but we're still making all of this stuff. That does not lead to a very peaceful sleep. And it can lead to apathy. And it can lead to burnout. I believe that if we are creative people and our creative objects are part of us, but they're constantly made obsolete, then we're killing ourselves slowly. That is burning out. Here's an interesting one. I find it interesting. I look at design as a value addition. We try to find pain points, and we try to do more good instead of less bad. That's the talk. Let's go deeper with this, and let's think of our designed object almost like drones, ethical drones that can go everywhere like they do. And they can be used to motivate in a very powerful way a behavior change. So a lot of people drop their heads because some of my lecture is kind of intense and kind of dark sometimes, and they're like, yeah, but we can't change people. And I'm like, oh really? Are you sure? Steve Jobs dropped the smartphone on humanity in 2007, and boy, did he change humanity. There's a before and after. I would say the smartphone is as big as the invention of freaking the wheel. I'll go that far. So don't say you can't change people. It is the context that has changed our behavior to be more and more zombie-like and more divisive. The opposite could also happen. Of course it can, right? Or the pandemic. We were able to convince 7 billion people to wear masks. And you think we can't do behavior change? Right? So, yeah, I think I got that point across. So, the effective altruism movement, obviously, it's gone through a crisis with some of these scandals and things, but I am a big fan. This was started by Peter Singer. I think they need help. I think designers could help on a superficial level, making better web pages, making cleaner platforms to spend and to for charity, etc. But once again, it could be that design objects themselves that lead towards altruism. This book, I swear to God, I'm almost done. Let me check the, yeah, I'm over the time. I'm almost done. This concept, I have to admit, I lifted from Yuval Harari. He just had a new book out called Nexus, and I haven't read it, but I saw a webinar with him, and he says, just like we humans need to be very careful about food intake, our paleo brain says consume, but it's not good to overconsume. Same with diet. Sorry, same with information. It's not more information is good. I think it's time for us to close our minds a little bit. That gets a weird reaction because people are like, think out of the box, open your mind. I think we're going crazy as a species. Let's close our mind a little bit. Mindfulness, not full minds. We need to concentrate on individual things. I don't think I need to spend too much time on this slide. I think you are all familiar with the benefits of some kind of mindfulness practice. I like this quote very much, so I'll read it very quickly. I think the muse sort of hit me that day. It's got a good ring to it. Am I becoming fearful of strangers? Are my applications turning me into a xenophobe? In this city, everything is decided by techno-scientific determinism, and I'm ushered like a zombie via algorithms and the hive's recommendations. I resist. I walk away from the material, simple soul that I am. When I'm in strange cities, I do it without applications on purpose because I like to meet strangers. I like culture shock. I like these little moments. I like the friction and then arriving in my hotel and I feel like a little bit of a hero's journey, you know, as pathetic as that might sound. The archipelago we've talked about. This is a quote from Barry Barlow, John Barry Barlow. I met him on a couple of times. He wrote the manifesto of the internet and was the lyricist of my absolute favorite band, the Grateful Dead. Wonder if I get some little thumbs up there. I love this quote. Be good ancestors. Oh, I got little floating hearts. I love it. Yes. Be good ancestors. That is a great sentence because we're a very young species. Let's stop this doomsday business. We only have about 200,000 years under our belt. The average species on Earth is like 1 million years. We're just in adolescence. We're like pinkle-faced, puber-esque species. We can do this. This is a young species. Second to last slide. I watch a lot of science fiction movies, and I've never seen a science fiction movie where the future is positive. It is always full of smoke and oppression. It is always cyberpunk in its aesthetic. Let's move away and go towards what we call protopia. This is a term from Kevin Kelly. Not utopia, because utopia literally means no place. Like etymologically, no place. I like protopia more, and the aesthetic here is what's called solar punk. It's kind of cheesy, some of it, I have to admit, but I like the attitude. It's the punk part is, yes, we can do this. And no, we're not going to just consume and be oppressed. We're going to have diversity. We're going to have inclusion. We're going to be pro-social. That's the punk part. And the solar part is we're not going to live off a petroleum-based subsistence. We're going to live on renewable energies. And we can go back to these in a second. These are just some sources, some books that I find extremely important. I don't have time to go through them, but these are some of the things I pumped into my head. Here's some more stuff. The Cost of Convenience, top left, is an incredible film that just came out. Great stuff. 99 Cent Invisible down there is a fantastic podcast, I think. Those two books on the top right, Anxious Generation and Bad Therapy, in my opinion, are the most important of this year. Here's some more stuff. Determined by Sapolsky. I listened to that one because that's a complicated book. Yeah. Here's a few more things. Like I said, I'm very happy to be in touch with you all and send you reading list if you are interested. I'm all done. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Michael. As another daughter of another father of two daughters, I really appreciate your talk and your calling passionate attention to the world that we're designing. Folks, I wonder who might have some questions. We've had a little bit of conversation there, Jessica, in the chat. I wonder if you'd like to pick up on your points at all. Or Suzanne, please go ahead.
Well, hi. I haven't got myself collected enough now to make really intelligent comment or question. I just tell you, this was wonderful. It was a whole other angle to think from, and it's so intelligent. I just want to express my appreciation. I'll be back with more later.
You're making me cry now. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
What a lovely way to start. Yes, deep appreciation. I think it's really important actually to send that signal to a speaker. We're performing here, and to send that signal of appreciation is a really fantastic start. Michael, as I was listening to your talk, I was thinking a lot about the incentive systems for designers and how within a capitalist sort of I noticed underneath your TED talk, there were a couple of comments. One of them was the best teacher I ever had, which is pretty good. But the other one that I
wait, sorry, which one? The best what you ever heard? Sorry?
The best teacher I ever had, it says under your TED talk, there's a comment there that says the best teacher I ever had. But there's another one there that also says it's Marxist rhetoric. So maybe I'm
there was a troll there also. I don't think I'm a Marxist at all. But anyway, go on.
No. Anyway, sorry. I was just going to say, perhaps I am. I was thinking about how the capitalist system and the creation of shareholder value and so forth is continually going to push designers toward the sort of outcomes that we're already getting. And I wonder whether it's possible for, I mean, I guess I don't really agree with this, but I want to test your thinking around how much teaching ethics and asking for reflection and imagery of protopia can impact when the incentive systems of capitalism are so strongly pulling in the opposite direction.
Wonderful, brave question. It's the big elephant in the room. Absolutely. All of you saw the elephant. It's the big elephant in the room. Absolutely. These kids, I say kids because they're 20-year-old bachelors or 25-year-old master students, agree with this stuff. I mean, how can you not agree with it? But then they go out there and their boss tells them, make a web page that makes people consume more, or make something that can be recycled, etc. And they need to make a living. You're absolutely correct. The way I would answer here is, once again, this punk rock thing. I'm not talking about punk rock music. I'm talking about the attitude here. I think we need a little bit more of an attitude. And I'm telling students, go out there, and even if your boss does not ask for a circular business model or a recyclable whatever, plan it in anyways. And if he fires you for that, then leave the company. Leave the company. So I asked them, we need a moral compass. I tell them, it's like the imperative from Kant or Jesus' golden rule. Imagine you are successful and your thing gets scaled and millions of things are bought or downloaded. Do you recommend that? Would you like that? And if the answer is no, stop designing it.
Yeah, beautiful. Connects them to their deeper values. Yeah.
We need to take ethics serious. It's not just deep talks. We need to make it and apply it, almost a science. Oh, by the way, my vision of the future designer is, I think design departments are in the wrong building. I don't think they should be in the arts building. Nothing wrong with art. I love art. But I don't think they should be in the business building. Nothing wrong with business. We all are part of the capitalist system. I think it needs to be in the building of public policy. So in public policy, you decide things like speed limits and accessibility for handicapped people, or what do you do with the criminal, or how is a vaccine rolled out, or whatever. Well, very similar here. We're designing the future. It should be public policy department. So I'm thinking of this as very practical, not just let's give them food for thought. Something
That's
like
good.
that.
Would you mind stopping sharing your screen?
Oh,
Or is it
sure.
your screen? Yes.
Yeah, I almost hit the wrong button and almost jumped out of the meeting. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Love to hear from someone else. Kathleen.
Cannot hear you. Bottom left, your microphone.
We might come back to Kathleen in a moment. Yeah. Sorry, Kathleen, feel free to.
Maybe
there
type
is a
something
test
in the
function
chat.
there too.
Or sometimes turning up the volume on your device might do the trick. Or
We'll go to
just
Susan first, and then we'll come back to Kathleen. Susan.
Well, okay, I have maybe a cogent thought. I put so many notes I took, so many of your lines and what have you. What you're really talking about is a radical shift of perspective into what works, rather than what the rugged individualist world we live in operates by, where it's for the individual rather than for the good of the whole. One of the things on the back of my mind that I wonder in this old configuration, which I also work with in the way I do, what about advertising agencies? We're so good at advertising, and there's such opinions out. Oh, you can't change humanity's mind, but I love it. You gave these wonderful examples. Of course you can change humanity's mind. I mean, that's
the definition of advertisement. But yeah, go on. It's kind of the definition of advertisement. That's why you have that branch. I mean,
well, how about getting advertising, somebody, an agency, to sell this other perspective? They're so good at selling. And look, We got all these billionaires. We shouldn't have any billionaires. Get one billionaire to fund a huge advertising campaign. Come on, we can do this sort of thing. I'm amazed that the thought leaders, and particularly the rich ones who can decide to do things with all that money, nobody's leading a parade. Nobody's put the flagpole up and said, let's get organized. You know, let's start thinking differently. And somebody with money and power, you know, to lead that sort of, I'm just amazed people don't do that. I mean, that's what I try to do, but who am I, you know? Well, maybe I'm this one little person that will come up with the, and I operate that way. But then again, where are all the power brokers who do have consciousness and conscience?
Yeah, I ask myself that all the time. I think we should stop picking on Bill Gates. Poor guy has probably given more money than any individual in human history. So I do think I do look up to him and his work. But I agree fully. So we need to work with evolutionary logic, including sexual selection theory. Here's a very small example. When I started working as a teacher, I've been in this game now for over 20 years. 20 years ago, every single student had a PET bottle, a plastic bottle that cannot be recycled very easily. Lately, I see a whole bunch of very beautiful clean canteens or Seek bottles or whatever brand it is. That is virtue signaling. You are saying, forget the PET. I use tap water for free, and look at me. So that is an example where advertisement can be used. Or look at Patagonia. Patagonia is a great company that has this infamous or famous marketing strategy that says, don't buy this jacket. And at first you're like, what? But it's brilliant. It actually says, don't buy this jacket. And then the small print is new because you can get this refurbished or recycled. And that guy, for example, the CEO, I don't know his name right now, he recently gave away his entire company to one stakeholder. And you know who that stakeholder is? Gaia, Earth. That is awesome. That, you know, that is a statement more than anything else. That got people's attention. I don't know, there is some movement. The movie Don't Look Up, that got the point across. A recent movie with Julia Roberts, Until the End of the World. So I do think things are moving, but I have to admit there are days when I'm very down and I have to sort of pretend optimism towards my students. It is a tough one. But I agree fully. I agree fully. We need to get the marketeers and the advertisements to use their tools in a non-capitalist way. One more shout out and then we'll take the next question. Donut Economics. What a great book. And the subtitle there is How to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. Same thing for advertisement, marketing, and design. We need to get away from the 20th century and move into the 21st.
Kathleen, oh, I still can't hear you. Oh gosh. Oh no.
So bottom left, there's a little microphone icon there. Then try the, if you're using a microphone, unplug it and just try your computer by itself, maybe.
Sometimes dialing in,
No.
hanging up and dialing back in will
Try that because I really,
Yeah.
really want to hear Kathleen's point. But
Yeah,
we can take
I'm
another
sure.
one. Meanwhile, is there anyone else?
Sure, I can ask a question. So I missed a bit, I dialed in late. I apologize. I missed probably an intro, but I was just wondering, in your teaching, do you teach design thinking? You know, companies like IDEO and I mean, really have been at the forefront of a lot of this, ethics and design and, you know, understanding the responsibility. I mean, being a designer myself, it wasn't until I had my own business that I realized, oh, I can use this thought process for anything. So going back to your comment that it should be in the social sciences, I mean, I really think that these skill sets, everyone should know them. It's really just going from concept to adoption and knowing how to create and sort of be confident in it. And I think that language can be used in any context, and was just wondering, yeah, your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I did the boot camp in the D school in Stanford on design thinking. So I'm a design thinking facilitator. I run those workshops. I'm a huge fan of the double diamond idea. And perhaps you missed the slide of the relay run. To me, I do the first diamond in design thinking. I do the theoretical part and the empirical part, and how do you do interviews and qualitative research and ethnography and all of this stuff. And then they go and they start into ideation and prototyping. And I might come in the very end with user experience testing and usability testing. So absolutely. And another point I would like to really make, because I really don't want to come across as arrogant. I'm not saying designers can only learn from need more anthropology and we need more it goes the other way around as well. I learned a whole bunch of research and anthropology since being in the world of design. A whole bunch. For me, anthropology kind of started in 2013 when I started working with designers. Because I think of it this way, like before I was just learning categories. Like these are the Navajo Indians, and here we have Japanese culture, and here we have Austrian whatever categories, and now all of a sudden I'm in the workshop of culture, quite literally. So I call that chapter in my book, I call Meeting the Prometheans. The culture bringer, Prometheus, that's the designer for me. So it absolutely goes both ways. So when we speak about co-design or participatory design, it absolutely goes both ways. The designer becomes the researcher and the researcher becomes the designer. So totally on board with you. And I find it a very, very good method. IDEO, I really like. Perhaps the one thing of criticism there, design thinking, as everything in capitalist system, has become commodified. And so a lot of companies think they can solve everything and anything with design thinking. And that's why every coffee house on this planet looks exactly the same. And every Airbnb place looks exactly the same. There's a kind of a feedback going on. I call it cargo cult thinking. We think, okay, Silicon Valley was successful with IDEO and with Bill Mogridge and Google and all of the tech companies. So if we do some of that, we can also become successful. So there's been this sort of gentrification of design. I have a bit of a problem with. It's become very homogeneous. I think we're losing some cultural spice. That would be my only criticism of design thinking, but as a process, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It can be a waste of time too. I mean, it really depends, like anything, you know, how it's used and
Yeah.
What's involved. But I think to me, the power of design is it basically takes an idea or research, and I think it can make it, you can put it into action. And it's just because I think design thinking, the thing I like about it is it's collaborative and it's placing into our physical human space, our world, ideas.
Yes.
I think that is a really valuable and important thing for humanity, because the more diverse groups of people you have in those environments that are sharing ideas, the better innovation we're going to have. So as a
Yes.
tool set, I think it is really important. It's a democratization, if you will. It's no
Yep.
longer top-down design,
True.
right?
True.
It really is able to start democratizing and listening to the fringes,
Good.
listening to those diverse voices that maybe wouldn't have had a seat at the table otherwise.
Absolutely. Where do I sign? I agree. I agree fully. And let's Jessica, let's collaborate. Let's write something together. Let's take this further. Yeah, you know, I think everyone here on the screen and in the wider pro-social community, I think we all agree on what needs to be done. I think we just have different levers to sort of pull. I'm betting on the design, on the makers of the future, architects, designers, and engineers, basically. Others have a different lever. So yes, I would love to continue this conversation, Jessica, and maybe we can publish something or whatever.
Thank you. I just want to draw attention to Kathleen's comment that she she wondered if you were familiar with Richard Heinberg's work, the Post-Carbon Institute.
Richard Hyman.
Heinberg.
No, I'm not, but it sounds very, very interesting.
Given that Kathleen's got trouble talking, maybe you could share, Kathleen, a little bit about what interests you most about that and how you think it's relevant for Michael. And in the time that we have, perhaps we could just take Michael James's
Post-Carbon
question or
Institute.
comment.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, yes, we can.
Yes,
Yay.
yes.
Okay, I didn't want to draw attention or sound like a commercial. Well, it's just that Richard Heinberg is somebody's work I've been following for a long time. You know, he came out of that group of thinkers and writers, you know, who wrote stuff like The Party's Over in the 80s and 90s, you know, really pointing to peak oil and peak resources. And his latest book, Power, which is a couple of years old at this point, he does talk about that very specifically, that our entire culture is built around access to these power source, fossil fuels that will diminish. And he's very ethical. He talks about how important it is for the global north to start saving these resources of petroleum-based fuel source to save it for this global south. And he's really positioning ethical issues in terms of the long term, the future, and what we owe, you know, what the privileged owe to others. And he also is supporting, he's advocating, you know, a different vision of a good life, you know, where people learn to play music and sit around and sit together and talk together. And, you know, that there's the decentralization of making and makers, you know, so that people are more engaged and enlivened. And, you know, as a former mental health person, I'm so excited by your presentation because you're really capturing so many powerful ideas in such a succinct way. I'm very grateful that you have students that you're influencing. But yeah, he's actually in Sebastopol in Sonoma County. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I figured you might remember some of the counties north of Palo Alto. But yeah, he and his group are doing wonderful work, and there's lots of people like
Tell
him.
me the name once again. Heinberg?
Heinberg. It's in the chat. Heinburg.
You know, one
Richard
problem
Heinberg.
with these web, when they're chats, I never know how to get back to that information once you leave. Heinberg.
Post-Carbon Institute.
Okay, got it.
Post-Carbon Institute.
I'm writing it down. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, I will absolutely check it out. Sounds very, very, very interesting.
Very
Thank you.
aligned with what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Let's hear from the other Michael James.
Hello. Yeah, you were saying that some of this, like doing design in this sort of ethical, anthropological way, no one wants to pay for it, or there's that sort of idea. But I'm curious if there are sort of examples that you've seen of people being able to do design in this way, that you can point to, or what you think, yeah, like what a successful model might be to have like an enduring group of designers doing this work.
Yeah. First of all, you're pointing to a very, very important thing. I need to sprinkle into my deck of slides some more positive examples. Some of it is kind of dark. Absolutely, of course, of course. What comes to mind? One example that I really love, and it gets me all emotional, even though I've talked about it hundreds of times. From the D school in Stanford, a group of students were given a brief to help raise life expectancy or lower child mortality rates in Nepal. And so you have to imagine these young designers flying over to Kathmandu, and they're already thinking, because designers are very fast and they want to build stuff. They're thinking we need incubators, especially for the premature babies. They arrive in Kathmandu, they start doing their research, and they realize that's not the problem. There's plenty of incubators in Kathmandu from philanthropic people, from the WHO or from whatever, the United Nations. The problem of the problem is that no one is going to them. No one is using them. Women are not leaving the valleys in the Himalayas because of too much snow, because of too much work, because of a misogynist husband who doesn't want them to leave, whatever reason. Power of design is to get to the right problem, framing the right problem, because if you don't, you might be solving the wrong thing. And so what they came up with was they basically said, okay, if people don't get to the incubator, we need to bring the incubator to the mothers. And they made this little it looks sort of like a little sleeping bag for tiny little infants. It has these units inside that you can fill with warm water, so the child has the temperature and the sound of the womb, basically, and the mother has the child here. It's like you carry it like this. And there's a little gimmick there. There's a little see-through part right around the chest area of the child. And at first you would think that's a silly gimmick, but it's not. Everyone who has ever had a kid knows how important it is to see the chest moving. Boy, do I remember that when first time I was left alone with my kids. I'm like, are they still alive? And so if that gives peace of mind to a woman, fantastic. And I don't care if it's made out of plastic or whatever, great. So that's a beautiful example. I like Emily Pilliton a lot as well. She has written a very feel-good book called 100 Designs that Emancipate People, or something like that, or Empower People, sorry. And in there she actually has Emily Pilliton, I think it's double T. In there she has the designer's handshake, which is kind of like the Hippocratic Oath. Again, kind of gimmicky, but it makes you think. So you buy this book and you can actually rip out the first page and sign it. And it says, I, as a designer, will not do stuff that can't be recycled, will not harm people, will be pro-social or whatever. And you can send it to her. That is cool. I think that is super cool. And as a final one, I would highly recommend Jonathan Chapman's work. He came up with this term called emotional durability. So to design into products emotionality. So this is before it gets to the market. So I know it's kind of late here, but just really quickly, most things lose value with time. But there's some exceptions, maybe like red wine or a violin or a guitar or something. It gets better with time. And another example is a teddy bear. Bear with me here. So a teddy bear, the longer a kid has it, the more attached it is to this thing, because it's almost like an absorbent of nightmares and bad feelings and whatever. What if we design that into things beforehand? So as Jonathan Chapman said, okay, let's take, actually I have a perfect example here. Let's take a mug, right? My hotel mug, I've been drinking some coffee here, and it has this ugly sort of tannin stains. Jonathan Chapman says, what if we make a cup that gets more beautiful the more coffee you drink? A beautiful ornament starts to grow inside. That is awesome. That is the opposite of planned obsolescence. And it's designed in before the market. So there's tons of examples, of course. Otherwise I wouldn't be in design schools anymore. So yeah, there are lots of examples. And once again, let's stay in touch, and I can. Are you a designer as well, Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in how design can be used for like social change. I learned about transition design in school.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, good field. And there's some schools that teach this now on master level, even PhD level. I
Yeah,
think part
I went
sells
I went to
the
Carnegie
leadership
Mellon,
well.
yeah, where Terry and
Sorry?
I went to Carnegie Mellon, where they
Oh,
kind of
nice. That's where Jonathan Chapman teaches.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he teaches. He's the director of transformative design at Carnegie Mellon. Yes, and he's a friend of mine. I can connect you if you're interested.
Wonderful. Well, that's probably a great place to finish on examples of really positive design and also making new friends, new connections.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Michael. I really appreciated such a thought-provoking talk that you gave, and thank you for making your time available, particularly at this time of night for you. I hope that you can wind down and get some rest.
First of all, I'm totally wired because this is pure adrenaline for me. I love doing this. And second of all, I did save myself a room beer. So I have a delicious IPA here ready to be opened. So do not worry.
To enjoy.
Thank you all for listening. Highly appreciate it. Let's stay in touch.
Can you give us your email, Michael?
Sure. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
And the other thing, if you are interested in the book, you can find it everywhere, Amazon or whatever. Yes, I'd love to hear your feedback. If you read it and to tell me what you think. It's called The Future Designer. You can find it just about everywhere. Don't laugh at my Yahoo account, please.
Too late. Really? People still use Yahoo? That's great.
I try to stay away from the G thing, from Google.
Yeah, fair, cool.
But anyways, thank you so much, all of you. This was wonderful. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.